Welcome to Wrldwire, the podcast that takes you beyond the headlines to explore the forces truly shaping our world today. We bring you thoughtful, in-depth analysis on global issues, from shifting power dynamics to economic alliances and everything in between.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready to get deep?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're tackling Neo-Imperialism.
Ooh, juicy topic.
I know, right? You guys sent in some seriously interesting articles.
Yeah.
Looks like that Wrldwire piece especially hits on some key points.
The Wrldwire one.
Yeah. Buckle up, though. We're going beyond the history books here into how countries exert power, but today.
Right, not the old school empires.
Exactly. Think less about tanks and troops.
Hmm.
More about, well, you'll see.
It's all about influence, really.
Influence. Okay.
Yeah, economics, politics, even like the movies you watch.
Really?
All of it can be tools for shaping a nation's direction, often in ways you wouldn't expect.
That's kind of scary. Okay, so where do we even begin with this? I mean, we all learned about empires in school, but this feels different.
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Neo-Imperialism, it's not about drawing lines on a map.
Okay, not like claiming territory.
Yeah, it's more about,
creating dependencies?
Dependencies.
Yeah.
Okay, but well, like developed nations, corporations, even institutions like the World Bank,
Right.
they can exert a lot of influence over other countries' decisions, often, to their own benefit.
Hold on, you're making me think about those news stories, about aid packages with all sorts of conditions attached. Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah. A Wrldwire article, they gave a perfect example. Loans that sound all helpful at first glance, but then... Big time. Strings attached. Yeah, like a country gets funding, desperately needs it. But they agree to adopt certain economic policies, and these policies...
They don't help.
Let's just say they benefit the lender a whole lot more than the borrower.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It can be, for sure. Creates what they call a debt trap.
Debt trap.
Nation becomes reliant on these loans, loses its ability to make decisions, independent ones,
So they're not really in control.
Exactly. Like being stuck on a financial treadmill,
Ooh, I get that.
You keep running and running, but you don't actually get anywhere.
So, okay, I'm starting to see how this is different from like old school colonialism. But how did we go from, empires carving up the world to this more subtle form of control?
It's not as big of a leap as you might think.
Really?
Think about it. After World War II, lots of countries, they were colonies, right?
Right, yeah.
And they gained independence.
Freedom.
But even with that political freedom, their economies still tangled up with their former rulers.
Oh, so the ties were cut, but the knot remained.
Precisely. And those relationships, the economic ones, they became the new avenues for control.
Interesting. So no more sending in armies.
Well, not always.
What?
Now it's trade deals, investments.
Oh, and those helpful loans.
Exactly. Powerful countries using all that to, maintain influence.
Wow, you're making me rethink like all of the current events I've been reading about. Is it possible we're still seeing like ripple effects of colonialism?
Not just possible. It's likely.
Wow.
To understand neo-imperialism today.
Gotta acknowledge that history doesn't just stay in the past.
That's true. All right, so if neo-imperialism is this hidden system of control, what are the, tools of the trade, so to speak?
Good question.
What levers are they pulling?
Well, the Wrldwire article, it highlighted these things called structural adjustments.
Structural adjustment.
Yeah, kind of like a key weapon in their economic arsenal.
Okay, but what are they?
Basically conditions that come with loans.
Bro.
Places like the IMF and World Bank.
Right.
Country gets the money, but
there's always a but.
They got to implement specific economic policies.
All kind of policies.
And what impact do they have?
Yeah, exactly. What are we talking about here?
We're talking about things like privatization of industries.
Okay.
Cutting back on social programs. Ooh, that sounds harsh.
Even opening up markets to foreign competition.
Okay, so they have to do all that.
They make it sound all nice and necessary, for stability and growth. But the reality, it's usually way more complicated.
Okay, so how does this actually affect, like, people on the ground? I'm having a hard time picturing the impact of these big economic policies.
Okay, imagine this. Your country, it gets a loan. to improve infrastructure, right?
That sounds good.
But as a condition, they got to slash healthcare spending.
Okay.
Suddenly, affordable medical care, a lot harder to come by for a lot of people.
Wow.
That's a consequence of those structural adjustments.
So it's not just numbers on a balance sheet. It's people's lives.
100%. And it often leads to a cycle.
A cycle of
dependency. Countries trying to meet these outside demands.
Instead of focusing on their own people.
You got it.
The Wrldwire article, they brought up the Greek financial crisis.
Oh, right.
Was that a case of these economic solutions backfiring?
It was. Greece got those bailout loans.
Huh?
But the austerity measures that were attached led to massive cuts. Public services, unemployment soared, social unrest.
It didn't sound good.
It wasn't. Really stark example of how these policies, like, they seem all technical, right?
Yeah, economic jargon.
But they can have devastating human consequences.
So, okay, we've got these economic levers being pulled.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's more to neo-imperialism than just money, right?
You're right on the money.
What else is there?
A political pressure. Another powerful tool.
Ooh, like what?
We're touching sanctions. Diplomatic isolation, even backing certain political leaders.
Wait, they influence elections?
Sometimes. Or they just support leaders that align with their interests. Gets complex, like a big chess game, but on the world stage.
So it's not just about influencing a country's economic decisions. It's about shaping their entire political landscape.
Exactly. Wrldwire article had this fascinating example from Latin America.
Latin America.
Yeah. Foreign powers historically used all sorts of tactics. Diplomacy, sometimes more covert ops, to get favorable trade terms and to get at those valuable resources in the region.
So it's about installing, like, friendly regimes.
Yeah.
Ones that'll play ball. It's starting to feel a bit like a conspiracy theory, to be honest.
Well, it's not always that dramatic, but the principle, the same. Control from a distance by, manipulating the political scene to serve your own interests. And the interesting thing is how often these political maneuvers, they intertwine with economic influence.
You mean like those loans with strings attached?
Bingo! They become a bargaining chip. Force countries to, make political concessions to get the money they need.
This is getting very intricate.
It is.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle here we need to talk about.
What's that?
Soft power. I'm curious to unpack this, what it means, how it fits in with all of this.
Soft power. It's about influence through culture.
Culture.
Shaping hearts and minds.
Not force.
Not like economic or political pressure, no.
So less about brute force, more about winning people over.
You got it. Think about it. We're bombarded constantly with cultural influences. Movies, music, fashion.
Okay, yeah.
Even the language we speak.
So that's all. Potential soft power.
It is.
Okay, so how does this translate into real-world influence? You saying, like, watching a certain movie could actually change my view of the world?
Might sound far-fetched, but it's happening. Let's take Hollywood, for example. Think about all those Hollywood blockbusters you've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Where the heroes, like this individual fighting against a corrupt system, and they succeed.
In the end.
Through hard work and sheer determination.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's the classic American dream, right?
Yeah, totally.
And there's nothing inherently wrong with that story, of course.
Right.
But when it's everywhere.
Like all the time.
Movies, TV, music, you name it. It starts to shape how you see the world.
Oh, so it's about more than just entertainment.
Way more.
What is it about then?
A worldview that, like, emphasizes individualism, consumerism, the whole pursuit of material wealth.
As markers of success.
Exactly.
So even something as, I don't know, innocent as a popcorn flick can be promoting certain values. Ideologies even.
It's subtle, but man, is it effective.
How so?
Especially when those messages are woven into narratives that are just fun to watch.
So we don't even realize it's happening.
Oh, we just absorb it.
It's like a Trojan horse of cultural influence.
Ooh, I like that.
It looks appealing on the outside.
Yeah.
But inside, it's carrying something potentially transformative.
Perfect analogy.
And it's not just Hollywood, right?
Oh, no, not even close.
What else?
Think about it, like Western fashion brands.
Okay, yeah.
They're global.
Totally.
Music streaming services, social media platforms, all contributing to the spread of this particular cultural model.
Okay, so we're surrounded by all this, often without even realizing it.
Pretty much.
So is there a way to navigate this? How do we become more aware of it?
First step is just recognizing that it exists.
soft power exists.
Yeah, and once you get
That these cultural products are more than just entertainment.
Right.
You can start to look at them differently.
More critically.
So instead of just passively absorbing it all, we need to engage more actively.
Ask questions, challenge assumptions.
Exactly. So it's about developing like a healthy skepticism.
I like that.
Realizing that even the most fun content can have an agenda.
100%.
And it's not just about critiquing these outside influences,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, there's another side to it.
What's that?
It's also about our own cultures.
Valuing them.
Nurturing our unique identities.
So it's not about, like, rejecting everything foreign.
No, not at all.
But finding a balance.
Exactly.
Appreciate the diversity out there, but stay grounded in our own values.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here, from, like, economic levers to political maneuvering to this whole soft power thing.
It's a lot.
I'm going to be honest, it's kind of bleak.
Yeah.
Is there any hope?
Yeah.
Can we push back against this system?
It's a tough one, that's for sure.
Well,
awareness is always the first step.
So just knowing about neo-imperialism helps?
It's a start, yeah, by understanding how it works. We can make more informed decisions about how we engage with the world.
So, knowledge is power.
Cliché, maybe, but true.
And the Wrldwire article brought up another good point.
Which was?
New global players.
Oh, all right.
China especially. They're probably going to reshape how all this works.
Makes sense. They've been growing like crazy.
Economically, politically, yeah.
So how does that shift the balance of power?
That's the question, isn't it?
Big question.
Take China's Belt and Road Initiative, for example.
Yes.
The one that goes across Asia, Africa, even into Europe.
Massive undertaking, billions of dollars.
Investments, loans, infrastructure, all of it.
Yep.
And there are a lot of different opinions about it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Some people, they see it as a good thing.
Promoting development and cooperation.
But others
see it as neo-imperialism, just a new version.
Where do you stand on that?
It's tough to say. It's complex. There's potential for good, definitely.
How so?
Improved infrastructure, that's a big one.
Leads to?
More trade, more jobs, better living standards.
Okay, so that's the upside.
But then there's the potential downsides, too.
Like?
Debt traps, lack of transparency, and, China using it to gain influence.
So it's a double-edged sword.
For sure.
Is there a way to make sure these kinds of initiatives actually lead to development?
And not just more exploitation.
Yeah.
That's the million-dollar question.
So no easy answer.
Not really, no, but I think it comes down to a few things.
Like?
Transparency, accountability, and a real commitment to making sure the benefits are shared fairly.
Among everyone involved.
Exactly.
So it's about creating a more level playing field.
Yeah.
Where developing countries actually have a say.
And aren't just pawns in some big game.
It's a nice thought.
It is.
But how do we get there?
That's where things get tricky.
Let's say we all start paying attention to this stuff.
To neo-imperialism.
Yeah. And to the ways in which power is used.
Okay.
Then what? What can we actually do?
Great question, and it's something we'll dive into more as we continue. So how do we move from, awareness to action?
Right. Because knowing about neo-imperialism is one thing. Actually doing something about it, that feels a lot harder.
It's definitely true, tackling something this big, ingrained like neo-imperialism. It needs more than just individual effort.
Okay, but that doesn't mean we can't do anything, right?
Right.
So where do we start?
Well, we can become more conscious consumers.
You mean like where we shop?
Yeah, exactly. Think about those fashion brands.
The ones we talked about.
Many of them, they rely on cheap labor, developing countries, often in really bad conditions.
Exploiting people.
Yeah, so if we choose brands that do things ethically,
that treat their workers fairly,
we can send a message.
With our wallets.
Right. It's about using our purchasing power to make a difference.
Incentivize companies to do better.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just shopping, too.
What else can we do?
Support organizations that are fighting for economic justice.
The ones working to empower communities?
Yeah, in those developing countries.
There are so many great nonprofits out there doing that work.
There are.
It's about finding the ones that speak to you.
And then?
Donating, volunteering, spreading the word.
Even small contributions can help.
And then there's the political side of things?
Right, because at the end of the day...
the decisions that really matter.
The ones that impact all of this.
They're made by governments.
Exactly. So we got to engage with our elected officials.
Advocate for policies that help, not hurt.
Fair trade, debt relief, responsible investments.
It can feel like, one voice doesn't matter.
I know.
But if enough people speak up,
it can make a difference.
So, write to your representatives.
Attend those town halls.
Get involved in discussions online.
All of that is important.
And I think Wrldwire also mentioned media literacy.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Being critical of the news we consume.
Recognizing that not all sources are the same.
Especially these days.
With all the misinformation out there.
And those echo chambers.
Yeah, it's about finding diverse perspectives.
Questioning those simple narratives.
And being wary of anything that feels manipulative.
So we need to be savvy consumers of information.
Exactly. And we should support independent media.
The kind that gives you the whole picture.
Yeah, nuanced and balanced coverage of global issues.
So important these days.
It is, because if people are well-informed,
they can hold those in power accountable.
And push for a better world.
More just, more equitable.
For everyone.
I like that. For everyone.
And at the end of the day, it's about recognizing that we're all connected.
Global citizens.
Yeah, what happens in one part of the world?
It affects all of us.
We can't just ignore the struggles of others.
Turn a blind eye.
Because their fate is our fate, really.
Wow, this has been an incredible conversation. I'll admit, when we started this deep dive, I was feeling a little overwhelmed by how complex all this is, Neo-Imperialism. But you've explained it in a way that makes sense.
Glad you have.
And it doesn't feel so hopeless anymore.
It's not about having all the answers.
It's about asking the right questions.
And being willing to have these tough conversations.
Because ultimately, it's through dialogue and action that we can change things.
Make the world a better place.
Create a more just and equitable world for all.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Into Neo-Imperialism.
We hope you found it informative.
And empowering.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for tuning in to Wrldwire. We hope today's episode gave you new insights and a fresh perspective on global events. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and share. Help us reach more listeners who care about unbiased, in-depth analysis. At Wrldwire, we believe in looking beyond the headlines. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep questioning the world around you.